morning. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Good morning. Calling the roll for the Monday, October 31st Board of Control meeting. It is 11:02 a.m. We have Nan Baker.
Here.
Dale Miller.
Here.
Levine Ross serving as an alternate for Purnell Jones.
Here.
Melanie Say serving as an alternate for Mike Dever. Lee Tucker serving as an alternate for the fiscal officer.
Here.
Paul Porter.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Let's all review the minutes from 10/24/2022. If there's no corrections to the minutes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Porter. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes approved. Is there any public comment?
No public comment.
Okay, moving on to contracts and awards. First item.
Our first item is BC 2022-637, Department of Public Works submitting an amendment to contract with Honeywell International Incorporated, doing business as Honeywell Building Solutions for Jail 2 fire alarm system testing, inspection, and maintenance services at Jail 2 for the period September 23rd, 2019 through September 8th, 2022, to extend the time period to September 8th, 2024, to change the scope of services effective upon contract signature of all parties, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $338,456.03.
Good morning, Tom Pavich, Public Works. This first item, we're looking for an approval of an amendment with Honeywell. It's for an additional 2 years, adding funds. We're changing part of the scope. The scope changes. We're doing a partial upgrade to the computer systems within the jail. It's antiquated and starting to fail, so part of this amendment will be this system upgrade, and this amendment will just go for an additional 2 years.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this item? Just one. Councilwoman Baker.
Just curious, as long as we're making these upgrades, is there any thought of where places aren't seen as well, some of the hidden places that we've heard about that need perhaps better surveillance?
So this is actually for the fire alarms, not security systems. Security systems, I think there's a separate contract with the IPS. This is more so the sprinkler heads, anything related to the fire alarms.
Got it, thank you.
Any additional questions? Hearing no additional questions, I'd like to make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Councilwoman Baker. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved.
Thank
Next
you.
item.
The next item is BC 2022-638, Department of Public Works submitting an amendment to a contract with Vandra Brothers Construction Incorporated for rehabilitation of West Ridgewood Drive from Ridge Road to State Road in the city of Parma for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $414,716.68.
Thank you. Are there any questions, Councilwoman?
Yes. What is the total project cost? That's a pretty substantial increase. The findings in the field must have been pretty major.
It was. The actual road structure, yes.
Councilwoman Baker.
So when this is bid, and you have a bid of 2.7 because they anticipated that it's worse than what perhaps others thought, how do you know that someone's not underbidding and then later come back and ask for another $400,000?
So when the project is actually bid, we actually go out, and create an estimate for the actual bid. So there is an estimate that's already generated.
All right.
The actual
So our original assessment of the repair did not include what was found later.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Hearing no additional questions, I'd like to make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
The next item is BC 2022-639, Department of Public Works recommending an award and enter into an agreement with Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority in the amount not to exceed $286,297.79 for the rehabilitation of Warrensville Center Road bridge numbers 5.92 East and 5.92 West over the Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority in the city of Shaker Heights.
When you say Department of Public Works, this agreement will just allow for, flag services provided
Thank you. Are there any questions on this item?
Just for flagging services, 286,000, just for flagging services?
that's the estimate as far as how long we'll be there. That's a high estimate, so what we'll have to do is they bill us as needed. So, from the engineer, the top estimate
I don't see a date here of when they think completion will be. Do you have a completion date?
it's gonna start in 2020.
Okay, just seems like a lot to pay for flagging.
But it's on an annual basis,
Yeah,
so we anticipate we won't have to pay all of that.
all right, thank you.
Any additional questions? Hearing no additional questions, I'd like to make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Ross. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
The next item is BC 2022-640, Department of Public Works recommending an award and enter into an agreement with the United States Department of Agriculture, Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, Wildlife Services, in the amount not to exceed $8,399 for animal and wildlife control services for the Cuyahoga County Airport for the period January 1, 2023 through December 31st, 2023.
Good morning again, Tom Pavich, Public Works. This item's a one-year contract agreement with the USDA for the county airport for animal and wildlife control, which anything that is trapped or caught will be removed in a humane way at the county airport.
Any questions on this item?
Unlike the others, 8,300 doesn't sound like very much for someone to try and capture a coyote or.
It's really not. USDA, they're a federal branch of the government, so they work with a lot of airports across the country. It's a very high percentage, especially in the past 10 years, and they're not really out there to try to make money. So they have trained and certified biologists come in. They create a work plan. The biggest impact is deer and coyotes right now. So it's if they try to have a control plan over the course of the year, so to mitigate the problems.
Okay, good, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions on this item?
Yes. Is this all done in a humane fashion, or can there be animals killed if other means are not available?
To the best of my knowledge, it's all done in a humane way.
Additional, Ms. Ross?
Yes, given the scope of services, do you think this contract will?
Yes, we've always had this. As long as the county owns an airport, they'll always have to have some type of wildlife control mitigation plan.
Are there any additional questions? Hearing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Porter. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved.
Thank
Next
you.
item.
The next item is BC 2022-641, Department of Information Technology submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in an award recommendation to DLT Solutions LLC in the amount not to exceed $23,754.73 for a purchase of an admin studio enterprise subscription licenses for a period of 1 year and recommending a purchase order with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, Janelle Green, Department of IT. So what this actual subscription does, it packages our custom applications that our developers create and helps push out the updates. So on the back end, we can make sure that people that need access to the applications will have those. This was bid out and we did not receive any responses. And this actually does represent a decrease from what we've used in the past. In the past, we've spent about I want to say almost $90,000 on these licenses. So we decreased the number of licenses that are being used, and this presents a good budgeted amount for this service.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this item?
Yes.
Councilman Miller?
How is it that we're able to reduce the number of licenses?
So it's about how many licenses are needed per the server to push it out. So we've consolidated some servers and things like that, so we are able to control the cost in that way.
Okay.
Any additional questions? Councilwoman Baker?
I'm just curious, because this is a small amount and we had difficulty trying to find a vendor, did we reach out to some of the local people, like we're trying to reach out to those that typically don't apply and, trying to broaden our
So-
reach?
One of the things, though, is difficult in the IT space in terms of reaching out to diversity members is this, that a lot of times manufacturers have subscriptions geared towards specific resellers.
Okay.
So we are oftentimes bound to deal with those particular resellers versus trying to go to some smaller ones. I know that in my department we looked up what vendors are registered in the DEI portal,
Yeah.
and a lot of them don't do reselling in that software space. A lot of them are in terms of contractor for time and materials work in that regard, and so they don't fit in what we need for the subscription licenses.
Okay.
I think in the IT space in our portal, I think there's 7 vendors, and I think 6 of them are more of if we need assistance in a staff augmentation space, and then 1 vendor does do some reselling, but not for these particular licenses.
Okay, good, thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Hearing no additional questions, I make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Ross. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
The next item is BC 2022-642, Department of Information Technology, submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in an award recommendation to Internet Work Expert LLC, doing business as INE, in the amount not to exceed $37,440 for a purchase of Pen Tester Academy Professional and Business Plan subscriptions for a period of 1 year, and recommending a purchase order with said RFP exemption.
Janelle Green, Department of IT. This is actually training for our network engineers and security engineers. So this organization acquired the Pen Tester Academy training, and the prices that we've shown have not increased since 2020. So that amount is in line with that original service. The remainder of the licenses are for various network engineering activities that allow our engineers to access training over the course of a year in various areas. One of the things with this particular training, we will have access to some training for newer equipment that we're getting in as part of the disaster recovery effort. So we want to make sure that our engineers are trained on the management and inner workings of that particular new equipment. And this will help them to do so.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this item? Hearing no questions, I make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Say. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item is approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2022-643, Department of Information Technology, submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in award recommendation to Dell Marketing LP in the amount not to exceed $99,479.52 for a state contract purchase of 119 Microsoft Azure Commit software licenses through June 30th, 2023, and recommending a purchase order with said RFP exemption.
Janelle Green, Department of IT. If you recall, Dell Marketing holds our enterprise agreement for Microsoft licensing. That's the reason why we went through Dell Marketing for this purchase. Azure Commit is a program that allows for cloud computing functions. From the IT space, the general IT space, we're using this for management of our disaster recovery efforts through Columbus, and also we have another data center here locally. The HHS portion will be using the licenses to build a custom app for child placement. So that's how it's the 50-50 split for the licenses.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this item? Hearing no questions, I'd like to make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Ross. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
The next item is BC 2022-644, Department of Information Technology, submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in an award recommendation to Ohio State University doing business as OrNet in the amount not to exceed $10,800 for a purchase of AWS Direct Connect service for a period of 36 months, and recommending a purchase order with said RFP exemption.
Janelle Green, Department of IT. This is an internet connection to the cloud for our backup for our infrastructure. Again, this will be utilized for our disaster recovery efforts.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this item? Hearing none, I make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
The next item is BC 2022-645, Department of Information Technology, submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in an award recommendation to Zoom Video Communications Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $114,484.60 for the purchase of 510 Zoom Enterprise Conferencing and Audio licenses for use by various departments for a period of 12 months, and recommending a purchase order with said RFP exemption.
Janelle Green, Department of IT. So as you know, in 2020, the explosion of Zoom meetings happened. So we embarked on an enterprise agreement with Zoom in order to manage all of the licenses that were being utilized throughout the county. So we have 500 actual named user licenses, and then the other 10 are for what we call a Zoom room. So any rooms that are set up, like these conference rooms that are around the building that are set up for to use Zoom, has that access. Our prior commitments and invoices totaled about $155,000. So this amount shows a decrease in our costs as we move to a higher tier. So if you have any questions about that, I can gladly take them.
I have a question.
Sure.
And my question is whether we're using less Zoom now than we did during peak COVID, or has it remained steady?
So we have some steady usages from the courts, and so between the courts and the magistrates and the attorneys over there, there's been a lot of steady usage. There's been other departments that are using Zoom licenses. I think from an IT standpoint, we want to come to a decision as far as what platform we're going to use, because we have Teams, we have Zoom, we have WebEx. I think we're getting closer to utilizing Teams. Teams has expanded their abilities over the last few years, so I think we're getting towards that. But for right now, we're going to utilize Zoom and make sure everybody still has that functionality while we determine what's the best package to be used for in the future.
So, for what it's worth, just my opinion, Zoom continues to have the superior product in terms of being much more user-friendly. So I recommend you continue to make Zoom available.
Okay, was noted. Will do.
Thanks. Is there any additional questions?
I have a quick question. Does it depend on the department of whether or not they use Zoom or Teams? Certain departments have said it's Teams, so just curious. Does it depend?
whoever you really reaches out to us for a license, what we've seen that happen in the past is that many departments were just using their P cards and getting the licenses. So, and which is why we had to step in with the enterprise, because we're like, there's licenses everywhere, so we need to manage, particularly because they're using our domain, the cuyahoga-county.us. So there's just some that have a preference. What has happened, though, also over the last few months is that Teams has built in a telephone aspect. Before, there was only like 500 users that can dial out. And so as Teams has expanded to allow like most users to use the dial out feature, I can see that the dependence on Zoom would be less and less, unless specifically some areas wanted to use Zoom.
Any additional questions? Hearing none, I make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
The next item is BC 2022-646, Department of Information Technology submitting an amendment to a contract with Unified Solutions Incorporated for SAP Human Capital Management Support Services for the period July 1st, 2017 through December 31st, 2022, for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $288,000 even.
Janelle Green, Department of IT. This will serve as our final amendment to the services with Unified Solutions. This has been a longstanding agreement where Unified supplied some staff augmentation services as in the SAP space, which was our original HR/payroll system. As you know, we went live in March of this year. So a lot of the work that is currently being done is about transitioning from the live system over into our data lake, which will warehouse the data as we move forward. This represents a number of invoices that we did need to pay out, and unfortunately we had to wait until we got an additional appropriation, and we like to thank Unify for being cooperative in this process and allowing us to put this forward now.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this item? Hearing no questions, I'd like to make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Ross. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
The next item is BC 2022-647, Department of Information Technology submitting an amendment to a contract with Service Express Incorporated for enterprise hardware maintenance and support services at various county locations for the period January 1, 2020 through December 31st, 2022, to extend the time period to December 31st, 2025, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $319,000 even.
Janelle Green, Department of IT. Service Express provides post-manufacturer warranty work. So when we initially buy equipment, there usually comes with some kind of warranty, whether it's 3 years or 5 years or whatever. And once that warranty expires, we can either try to continue on the manufacturer's warranty or to transition over to Service Express. But we do utilize that service for items that still have useful life. This amendment comes as we've expanded the number of items that are on the inventory for Service Express. So we wanted to amend this item in order to increase the dollar figure to cover the amount of inventory that is increased with this contract. And this will be an annual look back for this particular vendor because our inventory changes constantly, so it needs to be a constant examination. So we do anticipate there'll be an amendment every year to look at how much is needed over the course of a year, as we usually examine the inventory around January, February of every year. So I would anticipate there would be an amendment for a dollar figure based upon the inventory at that time.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this item?
So do we take into consideration that IT changes all the time and that after 3 years, some things become obsolete?
Yes.
So how do we pay for continuing service and warranty when maybe after 3 years it becomes obsolete?
Well, that's why we have an annual evaluation of the inventory to look at Is it still in its useful life? What's the condition of it now? And that's how we determine what rolls off or stays on the contract. So that's where we're doing the annual look and evaluation across all of our buildings where the equipment is housed to determine if we're going to move forward with that.
And do you also determine the cost of upgrading versus the cost of buying more warranty?
Yes. So like one of the examples, wireless access points, right? So they're like $1,000. So we look at, is it really worth it to put that on an extended warranty when we can kind of exchange it out? Like
Right.
what we look at from an individual equipment type basis before we make the determination if it's going to be on warranty or not.
Okay, so something is near warranty, you look at it pretty hard to say whether or not that we should continue with that product or whether we should
Right. If it
upgrade the,
upgrade, is there
and get
something
a new
newer?
warranty.
Right, exactly. So, and when we buy the equipment, again, it comes with 3 to 5 years warranty. So we look at it, okay, over this lifespan, how the depreciation and all of those things we take into account when we evaluate the inventory that sits on this contract.
does it happen very often where you're 3 years into a maintenance contract and a year later you realize that there's something better out there?
Not very often. So we try to look at what's with its useful life, which can be 5 to 10 years, and then after that make the determination because we've made a major investment into the equipment, so we want to make sure that we get as much use of it as we can. I think in the future, like we're trying to get away so much from hardware and kind of go into the cloud, so we have a decreased cost over time.
Right? It's not like a truck or a piece of equipment. This
Right.
is something that just keeps changing and evolving and.
Oh,
Right.
definitely, and
Same.
especially when we looked at the disaster recovery equipment, it's just
Right.
like it's constantly changed, and it's changed from just the beginning of this year till now.
Right.
So it's constantly an evolution that we try to keep up with.
Okay, well, it's good to know that you're balancing all those different things. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Hearing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Councilwoman Baker. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Thank
The
you.
next item is BC 2022-648, Court of Common Pleas Juvenile Court Division, submitting an amendment to a contract with Equus Group LLC to provide diversity, equity, and inclusion training sessions for court staff for the period May 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022, to extend the time period to June 30th, 2023, to change the scope of services effective upon contract signature of all parties, and for additional funds in the amount of $97,800 even.
Hi, Tara Brown, Juvenile Court. This is our contract to provide DEI training for our court staff. I believe this is the first amendment to extend this contract. Our goal is to eventually provide advanced training so that we could start to do it in-house, so like a train-the-trainer type session, and it is to add $97,800.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this item?
Answered it here, I'm not sure. But this contract starts July 2022, so we're already November. Is there a reason why it took from July?
Yeah, it's a reclaim contract, so again, the reclaim, I say this
Have
every
to
time
wait
I'm
for
here.
it.
Yeah, the reclaim budgets weren't approved until late August, and then there was a little bit of back and forth with the vendor and them getting in all the documents, and so it's just delayed.
Was there any services of training during that time? Did we lose that time?
No, we didn't. So they have something coming up, I believe, scheduled for December.
Okay, but the months between July and December? did
No,
we do-
it's not ongoing. It's just as we schedule it. So they were waiting for the contract to be active.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions?
I have a question. The executive is currently doing DEI training for our staff here. I was just curious, is this similar to what we're doing here through Tribe C that we're offering to our employees?
I'm not exactly sure what's being offered here, who provides it. I just know that we aren't on that contract, so we do have our own, but I can ask when I get back if there's a possibility of us joining in on the whatever the county is doing.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions? Hearing no additional questions, I'd like to make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Ross. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2022-649, Court of Common Pleas Juvenile Court Division, submitting an amendment to a contract with Ohio Guidestone for educational and vocational support services for court-referred youth for the period August 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022, to extend the time period to June 30th, 2023, and for additional funds in the amount of $30,000 even.
Tara Brown again for juvenile court. This is our contract with Ohio Guidestone. It provides educational and vocational services to youth in the probation unit. It's adding $30,000, and this is also a reclaim contract that is late for the same reasons.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions on this item? Hearing none, I make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
The next item is BC 2022-650, Court of Common Pleas, Juvenile Court Division, submitting an amendment to a contract with Reaching Above Hopelessness and Brokenness Ministries Incorporated, doing business as Rob Ministries, for trauma-informed mentoring services for youth assigned to the Safe Harbor docket for the period July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2022, to extend the time period to June 30th, 2023, and for the additional funds in the amount of $93,377.52.
Tara Brown again, juvenile court. This is our trauma-informed care contract with Rahab. It's to add $93,377.52, and it's for youth who have been identified to have a history with trauma. It is 100% funded by Reclaim. I believe this is maybe, I'm not sure what amendment we're on for this one, but we might be okay without having to do a new contract. I know that was an issue before, but it is late for the same reasons.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions on this item? You're looking up something, Paul?
I was just looking, this might be the first amendment to this one. We've only got one prior board approval number on it, so it may be the first amendment. It might have been a 2-year agreement to start with, I think.
Thank you.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Any questions on this item? Hearing none, I make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Say. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Thank you.
The next item is BC 2022-651, County Prosecutor submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in an award recommendation to M&J Technologies Direct Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $14,749.88 for a state contract purchase of 477 VMware Carbon Black Cloud software subscription licenses, and recommending a purchase order with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, Josh Brower, Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office, Department of IS. This item before you represents the purchase of 477 VMware Carbon Black antivirus licenses. VMware Carbon Black is a next-gen antivirus platform, greatly expanding the cybersecurity threat detection and mitigation capabilities of the Prosecutor's Office.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this item? Hearing none, I make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Porter. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved.
Thank
Next
you.
item.
Next item, BC 2022-652, Sheriff's Department submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in an award recommendation to Tim Lally Chevrolet Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $50,490.88 for a purchase of build-outs of 3 already purchased 2023 Chevy Tahoes with K9 police packages, and recommending a purchase order with said RFP exemption.
Chris Costin, Sheriff's Department. As you may recall, back in August, we came before you and asked for approval for 5 Chevy Tahoes. 3 of those were for K9 units, 2 were for SWAT. This item here is for the build-outs for the 3 K9 units. We are asking for an exemption on this. The original quotes we got were under $50,000. We went out to bid twice. The second bid came in just over $50,000, and that's the reason for exemption.
And I'll take the heat on this one. It was my recommendation that they do an informal bid process because the original estimates were under $50,000. when it came in, just over the 50,000 mark that we target for informal versus formal, I advise just to do an exemption. I don't think the price would be substantively different if they went ahead and did a formal competitive process. Again, it's very, very close to that $50,000 threshold.
Thanks, Paul.
Are there any questions on this item? Hearing no questions, I will make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Ross. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2022-653, Sheriff's Department submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in an award recommendation to Integrated Precision Systems Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $31,740 for a state contract purchase of 6,000 access cards for various county buildings and recommending a purchase order with said RFP exemption.
Chris Costin, Sheriff's Department. What this is a state contract purchase through IPS for your access cards throughout the county. These are not just for county employees, they are also for contractors, any transfers, replacements, printer malfunctions. We do offer some of these cards to the HPG for some of their guests as well.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this item? Hearing no questions, I make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved.
Thank you.
Next item.
The next item is BC 2022-654, Department of Public Safety and Justice Services, recommending an award and enter into a contract with Stealth ISS Group Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $44,330.49 for cybersecurity regional services, effective upon contract signature of all parties through February 28th, 2023.
Good morning, Leslie White, Department of Public Safety and Justice Services. Starting with our FY20 State Homeland Grants, cybersecurity was included as a national priority with a required minimum spend. So Ohio Region 2, which includes Ashtabula, Cuyahoga, Geauga, Lake, and Lorain counties, approved this project to hire a cybersecurity consultant, and they'll be conducting a high-level cybersecurity assessment using the available federal resources. And then they'll also be assisting in the creation of a regional work group to expand the region's cybersecurity posture and response capabilities. And so they'll be looking at the assessment itself, and then what are our weaknesses and in the region, and then with future grant dollars, where should we be focusing those funds? We did work with Jeremy Mio in the development of the RFP, and it was worked on as well with the IT directors and from the other counties, and the Ohio Region 2 Emergency Management Directors had to sign off, and the Law Enforcement Terrorism Prevention Program had to sign off. They're both the groups that receive the grant funding. And then also Ohio EMA approved the RFP as well as moving forward with the selected vendor. So we did get 4 proposals, and we're recommending moving forward with the highest scoring proposal, and it was also the lowest cost proposal.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this item?
The question. So I know our IT director has been very much involved in trying to get our security increased. Did he have any part in this, Mr. Johnson, Director Johnson?
No, we worked just directly with Jeremy.
Any additional questions? Hearing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Say. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2022-655, Department of Health and Human Services, Cuyahoga Job and Family Services, submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in an award recommendation to Cami Hotel Investments 2, LLC, doing business as Doubletree by Hilton, downtown Cleveland Lakeside, in the amount not to exceed $11,994.60 for room rental, catering, and audiovisual services in connection with the annual Fatherhood Conference to be held on November 16, 2022, and recommending a contract with said RFP exemption.
Hi, Al Grimes from Health and Human Services in the County Fatherhood Initiative. This item represents the Cuyahoga County Fatherhood Initiative's 16th Annual Fatherhood Conference on November 16th. It's our annual forum created specifically to promote healthy father-child relationships, address the social problems that result from father absence, and strategize as to what we can do to make sure that every child has a father in her, an active father in her or his life. We'll be having a resource fair, opening plenary session, workshops, a town hall meeting, and an awards luncheon for outstanding fathers in the community. This conference is funded by the St. Luke's Foundation and the Dollar Bank. It's been canceled for the last 2 years because of COVID, but the funders wanted to get the conference completed in 2022. A full book process may not have allowed us to get it in this year, but we did receive 4 bids from vendors, and the DoubleTree was the lowest vendor. As a matter of fact, their price was 3%, just 3% more than the contract we had in our last conference in 2019.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this item?
Yes. Am I correct that you've usually held these conferences in June rather than this time of year?
Exactly. So the last conference that we had was in 2019. We were all set to have the conference in 2020, but COVID hit. And so we couldn't have it in 2020 and 2021. And the money stayed, we still maintained the funds. So we talked with our funders, and they said, well, how can we get a conference done in 2022? And then we'll go back next year to the regular conference, which is the Friday before Father's Day, which is the way we've been doing it annually for the last 15 years.
So you're going to have 2 conferences only about 7 months apart.
Yeah, but I guess the difference between, there was just a conference in a state fatherhood conference that was held in Canton, by the Ohio Commission on Fatherhood. That was the same reason. They had some funds that they had available that they needed to get used up. But hopefully without another epidemic, we'll be back on track next year and having the annual fatherhood conference as we've been doing the last 15 years, Friday before June.
Baker?
What is the total cost of the conference? Because 92% of this is coming from grant awards.
Correct. The total conference is $11,552. So $552 comes out of our Fatherhood Initiative budget. $11,000 comes from the funders.
Oh, okay. Okay, good to know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any additional questions? Hearing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Ross. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Thank you very much.
We're moving on to the consent agenda items, which are BC 2022-656 through BC 2022-657.
Let's take a second to review. Are there any questions on the consent agenda items? There are no questions. I'd like to make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Porter. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved. Moving on to the next item, is there any public comment?
We have a time-sensitive mission-critical item, which is BC 2022-658, Medical Examiner's Office recommending an award to Thermo Electron North America LLC in the amount not to exceed $20,656 for maintenance repairs to the mass spectrometer in the toxicology department.
Hugh Shannon, Medical Examiner's Office. This was an emergency repair for a turbo pump on our newest spectrometer in the toxicology lab.
Are there any questions on this item? Councilwoman Baker?
So speaking of warranties earlier, is there any warranty, given this was a new?
The warranty expired. This is on the maintenance contract, so this was just for the repair portion, the repair part.
How old is this equipment? Is it?
2 or 3 years old. So.
Any additional questions? Hearing no other questions, I'd like to make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second. Second by Councilwoman Baker. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved. Any other
Thank you.
business? Thank you.
To go back to the consent item agenda, BC 2022-657, the department has noted that the funding for PO 2022-004716, the funding source should not be HHS funds. It should be HUD grant funds.
I'd like to make a motion to approve as amended, noting the HUD grant for 22-004716. Is there a second?
I'll second again.
Second for Mr. Porter. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The consent agenda items is approved as amended. Any other business?
No other business.
Any public comment?
No public comment.
Hearing there's no public comment, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.